So, Nintendo Switch Sports, the highly anticipated successor to the Wii Sports series, has been out now for a little over a month. And with a revamped style along with more modern approaches, the fan response has been a mixed bag. But all things considered, I believe that a multitude of factors directly contribute to the polarizing reception that Nintendo Switch Sports has received in this first month. And the biggest one of all may be the same that plagued the forgettable remake that was Wii Sports Club on the Wii U nearly a decade ago. The simple fact that it just isn't Wii Sports Resort. Let's talk about it. First, I want to address the elephant in the room for me personally about Nintendo Switch Sports, and that is the fact that it continues a growing pattern that I'm noticing in newer Nintendo games where they release a blatantly unfinished game under the new age standards of DLC and updates. When Wii Sports came out in 2006, it was a launch title that had the hefty task of being the face of the early wave of developed, full-fledged motion control gaming. So, when it only had 6 sports available, it was nothing to scoff at. Wii Sports Resort had 12 and held the quality of game despite doubling its roster. Wii Sports Club was a remake, so it also had 6. But again, we don't talk about Club for a reason. After waiting so long not just for a new sports game, but for the series just to get onto the Switch, it's embarrassing that we are here with only 6 sports. And yes, I know golf is coming towards the year's end, but that is another issue in itself. Some believe that golf and possibly other sports are being held to entice consumers to play the new Mario Golf instead, but with Mario Strikers coming back this month despite soccer being on Switch Sports, I find that hard to believe. I think that the game is just unfinished, and what supports this for me personally is just how barren the single player and offline experiences are. Every meaningful incentive is delegated to online play, and since there is only 6 sports, it gets pretty tired quickly. It's only so many times you can play chambara or bowling until those cold, lifeless eyes of the sports mates start to get to you. And speaking of that, there is the rather loud outcry over the game's design. While you can still implement Mii's onto Switch Sports, the default new characters are the sports mates, a more detailed Animal Crossing-esque design that coincides with the new setting of Spoko Square. Now personally, I wouldn't have an issue with the big redesign if Mii's were long gone and ruled outdated and delegated to the Wii era of Nintendo. But the Mii feature has been integrated with the Switch since its inception and has already been present in numerous major releases. Since this is a direct continuation of the sports series, a franchise that has been heavily tied to Mii's for over 15 years, it wouldn't be anything wrong with continuing that beloved tradition. That being said, if you do choose to take up on the offer to use your Mii in-game, you have to pay the price of your character looking ridiculous and completely out of place in Spoko Square, compared to the aesthetic Mii paradise that was Woohoo Island. I also wouldn't have a problem if the new Sportsmates design would at least allow more customization options for the player off rip, especially since Nintendo has committed all of this effort to update the series design for a triumphant comeback. In a time where avatars, identity, and representation are at an all-time high, the game has 6 hairstyles when you launch the title. 6. It's absurd. In general, the issue I have with the series no longer favoring Mii's is that it removes the established charm and connection to the series that fans have. There was, and still is, nothing wrong with Mii's. Without it, combined with some of the other bare and bland aspects of the game, doesn't even make it feel like a game in the series. It feels like a spin-off, or a third-party title, or like if Apple made a variety sports sim game. Disregarding the pompous complaints about how the game looks from a visual standpoint, the actual game itself does what it's supposed to do from a surface level. Personally, I'm happy that classic Nintendo bowling is finally accessible on the Switch, and there are some more unique and difficult options and game modes to choose from. With that being said, I had hoped that the detailed technology of the Joy-Con that was so hyped up throughout the Switch's rollout and launch would enhance the already impressive mechanics of Wii Sports Bowling. What we got was the opposite. The game has been so dumbed down in some points that once you get that angle, you'll never miss a pin, defeating the nuance that made it so impressive in the games that preceded Switch Sports. The intricacies of the new badminton game is respectable, And soccer, despite the fact that the peripheral that was included with the game had no real use aside from a mini game, which makes absolutely zero sense, as well as volleyball, despite not being that solid on execution either, are respectable newcomers all things considered. The reinvention of swordplay as Chimbara is actually quite impressive. The new additions of the charge and twin swords really mix up and stretch the playtime of the mode if you are really invested. And I still don't appreciate how there are still no singles option for tennis. Even playing online, you can't team up with another player and play doubles. Will golf tip the scales when we eventually do get it? I doubt it. I think my largest gripe with this game as a whole is that Nintendo sat on this potential and on the precipice of this game for 5 years. Again, 5 years, half a decade. The Wii Sports series has been arguably the most important one, aside from names like Mario and Pokemon for Nintendo, since the Wii saved their stubborn tails from a void of mediocrity post-SNES in the market. A dangerous path that could have eventually given them the same fate as Sega in the hardware market. The Joy-Con, albeit we all know how much of a pain they are now, which in itself is a whole nother conversation to have in a whole nother video, were heralded as the great evolution of the Wiimote. And while they were quick to push the other major multiplayer franchises like Smash and Mario Kart and Mario Party and even Splatoon onto the Switch within its first 2 years fresh on the market, all Nintendo had to show as their big Joy-Con demo was 1-2 Switch. And that's no bite at 1-2 Switch, but let's be real. Wii Sports is a big deal, so it really bugs me that they waited so long into the Switch's lifespan to finally cough up what I was getting ready to believe was an abandoned franchise. And after all of that wait, not just from the Switch's launch, but from Wii Sports Resort honestly, this is what they gave us? And I'm not pulling the not to sound ungrateful card either, because aside from the developers who slave away to make these games year in and year out, Nintendo hasn't exactly been the kindest to their user base during the Switch era. I'm sure that they've seen all of the constant outcry for a return to Resort style in games. I'm sure they're aware of Resort's impact and the love people have for it, and I'm damn sure that they understand that Woohoo Island is seen as an established Nintendo landmark, most notably by how it's found in games like Smash Bros. And Mario Kart. It could have been so easy, and there was so much time that could have been given to really make this a passion project and not a shoo-in amongst some really alluring releases this year like Kirby and Mario Strikers. But maybe that is just me projecting the pent-up hope that I had for years that we would see a beautiful return to Woohoo Island on the Switch. Maybe I should just bite my tongue and see how the rest of the game pans out as it ages and as more content is to be added. After all, I think I'm just as guilty as the next person to put it the fact that this is just too divergent from the Wii to satisfy those who really hang on to those rose-tinted glasses. The game is decent. The gameplay truly shines the most when you're playing online or with friends and family. Thoroughly and personally, I really did enjoy some of my online matches, especially in the beginning. But after all of this wait and personal build-up since February's Direct and beyond, it all just feels extremely hollow in the end. With that being said, those are just some of the reasons why I think Switch Sports has started off in such a mixed bag. Ultimately, it's difficult to follow up on a game that has become entrenched in video game culture, both in the industry and in the media. But what are your thoughts on Nintendo Switch Sports? Do you have any big gripes with it as well? Are you having fun with it? At the end of the day, that's all that really matters. Let me know in the comments below. If you made it to this part of the video, I truly appreciate you. If you enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. We just hit 1,000 friends and I got something special cooking up for you all. And as always, take care, good game, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace!